So I recently finished the book The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer, and this book really changed my perspective on things. It helped me change my perspective on my inner thoughts and life in general. Well, of course, I still recommend that you read this book and experience it for yourself. Here are a few things that I found very helpful in this book for you lazy motherfucker. Just kidding, I don't actually think you're lazy. I love you guys. Awakening the consciousness. So we all have this inner voice in our head, always talking. It's pretty annoying if you ask me. And if you don't think you have an inner voice in your head, it's that voice that just said, I don't have a voice in my head. And if you actually start to listen to it, you'll notice that it literally just argues with itself non-stop. And the sad thing is, it's become such an integral and normal part of life that we don't even notice it sometimes. It's like we've become hypnotized to this talking that is always just, bickering. So how do we free ourselves from the bickering mind? Well, you'll find out in this book. Turns out I've been doing it wrong this whole time. And I think all of humanity has been doing it wrong. So you can't really argue back with the voice, because I think that that's what I've been doing. And clearly that hasn't worked, because I am still a mess. Instead, the answer is to listen to the voice objectively. And that's when you start to realize how much the voice is super meaningless. Like, it doesn't really make any sense. And it has very little impact on the outside world. If your thought is, I hope it doesn't rain because I want to go to great America and have a grand old time with my friends, and it can't rain. That's not actually going to stop the rain from actually raining, the clouds from crying. It is just going to happen. Your mind can't control that. That's similar to if your thought says something about you, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true, because it changes its position all the time and it's always talking. That voice can't really affect anything in the real world, but it thinks it can. It's simply trying to make you feel better or worse about the things that's happening now, something that's happened in the past, and praying that feeling doesn't happen in the future. And boy, does it have to say something about everything. Even if you're actually unbothered by it, it's narrating your life and you don't even realize it. If a dog came and sit next to you, which here we've got dog sitting next to me, and my mind goes, oh, dog sitting next to me, he kind of smells, probably needs to take a wash. Why did your voice have to say that? You yourself knew that it was already sitting there. You didn't have to repeat it. Your mind didn't have to repeat it, but it did. Why did it do that? You're the one that experienced it, so you obviously know that the things that the mind is narrating is already happening. You know what happened. The narration is there to help us feel better and more comfortable with the world around us, and some part of us thinks it gives us control. It helps us have a relationship with the world around us. A tree outside is just a tree outside, and it doesn't make it a tree outside if you say, oh, that's a tree. It was already a tree before, but now it's a tree that you've witnessed and judged and then therefore labeled. What we end up experiencing through all of these narrations and this outlook of life is a personalized experience of the world, according to us and based on our past experiences, rather than a stark experience of what's actually out there. We try to manage and control the experience of reality to what fits together in our mind and what makes sense to us. But the only way to find peace is to stop spending so much time thinking about yourself. I know, we all do this. We're kind of selfish that way. But have you ever realized how much your mind says the word I feel this, I am this, I. The I in your mind is just trying to make you feel okay. The I in our mind is just trying to make us feel content with ourselves, and the only way to make us feel content is to make the outside world change, and therefore in a future moment you will be content with yourself. But before the current problem, there was a problem before this, and after your current problem, there's going to be another problem. You're never going to not have a problem. But the real question is, why do you perceive the current thing that you're going through as a problem, a negative thing? Let's say that your current problem is that your best friend got into the college that you wanted to go to, and you had these dreams of going together, but you didn't get in. You want to be happy for her, but you have this impending feeling of feeling jealous. And then you feel guilty for feeling that jealousy. Therefore, you try to suppress that feeling of jealousy and try to ignore your friend or push her away and push down the feeling of jealousy because you feel guilty about it. Instead of trying to protect yourself from the jealousy, ask yourself, what part of me is jealous? I mean, at the end of the day, the feeling is a natural part of life. You can't push it away. When we realize that there's a problem or a feeling that we don't want to feel, our immediate reaction is to push it away. We avoid events that remind us of a specific moment, but avoiding the pain is only making the problem worse. The solution is to let your reaction and feelings flow through you. What does that mean, Ipsita? Okay, well, we're about to find out in this book. Since we established that inner voice is not really you, you are the one aware of the voice. So let's consider that voice as your inner roommate. Your inner roommate is constantly bickering and telling you how you're not enough, and it can make you feel icky about pretty much anything. Honestly, it does do that. It can probably ruin the most happiest days in your life. And once you recognize the voice of the inner roommate, start listening to the things it says. Then imagine if a real person was sitting next to you and saying all of those things to you. You wouldn't last a day with that person. You would literally punch them in the face and never speak to them again. But we live with this person all the time, 24/7, and we actually give it the power to make decisions for us and dictate how we feel about ourselves. The inner roommate is just a disturbed mind, and we let it dictate how we do things. Who are you? Who are you if you're not the voice inside of your head, right? Well, I'm Ipsy, I'm 25 years old, but is that me? Well, I'm not a collection of letters. That is not who I am. I'm not a collection of my experiences either, because when I was born, I was still me, but I didn't have those experiences to define who I am. So then who am I really? We are the one that sees and experiences the world, the one that's aware of everything. We're not the voice that narrates the world, but the one that hears it. We cannot be the voice inside of our head because we're the one listening to the voice inside of our head. The awareness before the judgment occurs is us. A lucid dream is when you dream and you know that you're consciously dreaming. You're aware that you're dreaming, but you're able to still live the life. And that's kind of what our real life is, actually. We are aware of the events in our life, but we spend so much time sleeping, we don't even realize that we're dreaming. So then when we finally wake up, we're able to do whatever we want and not be bombarded by the, constraints of a human life. We don't have to be defined by a body, and that kind of stops us from doing a lot of things. You are aware of the thoughts and events that come up in this experience. When a thought is created, you remain aware that you are thinking those thoughts, but you know that you are dreaming. Our consciousness is an interesting thing. It is distracted by whatever is most appealing or most eye-catching, or whatever is most interesting in that moment. Our consciousness can be aware of just one little part of our tip of our finger, or our entire body, or our entire room. When we're watching TV, we are so absorbed in the television show or movie that we forget that we are actually sitting. But in a moment's notice, you can notice that you're sitting where we are. If you're invested in a movie or TV show, you let yourself get absorbed in it. And this is because when we're watching a movie, there are two senses that are at play: seeing and hearing, and they're in sync, and therefore we can get absorbed in that experience. But imagine that all 5 of our senses were working together in sync and experiencing something, and that is literally what's happening in our body in this world. We are living this very realistic experience. But imagine if we were watching a movie where now we not only could see and hear things, we tasted what the character tasted. We touched what the character touched. We felt what they felt. You would be so invested in that movie. You would actually just forget that you were watching a movie. If certain things happen, the emotions can flood up to our awareness. Then you're preoccupied with whatever that emotion is, and we're preoccupied with the world of thought. We don't even remember that you're in there because you're so invested in experiencing these emotions. That's how real and intense the human experience is, watching all of it happen. But like a movie, you can still get bored of a movie and you can start thinking about other things, and then you're hardly aware of the movie now. This is only because your thoughts can happen even with the emotions. So if you ever want to center yourself, all you have to do is say hello in your mind and then try to figure out who's the one that heard that hello.